Hello, welcome. What? Why am I hearing myself? I don't want to hear myself. I'm gonna turn off this volume. Fuck this. Okay, so welcome to my first video of my channel. This is gonna be a short series on how to make a currency converter with Python. It's just gonna be educational. You're gonna learn things about APIs. You're gonna learn things about tkinter, and you're gonna learn in the last video how to scrape actually. So in this video, we're gonna just explore what are APIs. You're gonna make your first API request, or maybe not your first, maybe your second, I know. You're just gonna make an API request, okay? Just watch the video, okay? Have fun, bye! So, first of all, what's this app gonna look like? Just a window with an input, 3 inputs. The first input is gonna be the amount of a certain currency. It's going to be a currency converter, by the way. It's going to be the amount of a currency. It's going to be, the second input is going to be what currency from. And the third input is going to be what currency to. And then we have just one output, and that's the amount of the currency to. So first of all, what the hell is an API? Imagine you're at a restaurant and you want to order some food. The API is like the menu that lists all the available dishes and provides information about how to place your order. In this analogy, the restaurant is a system or service that you want to interact with. The menu is the API, which tells you what you can do and how you can do it. Placing your order is like making a request to the API. And finally, the food you receive is the response you get back from the API. Just like a menu provides a standardized way for customers to order food without having to know how the kitchen prepares each dish, an API provides a standardized way for software applications to interact with a system or service without knowing all the intricate details of how it works internally. APIs define rules and formats for making requests, ordering food, and receiving responses, getting the food from a system or service. They make it easier for different software applications to work together and share information. For example, an API for a weather service might provide a way for other applications to ask for the current temperature or the forecast for a specific location. Another API for a payment gateway might let an e-commerce website accept payments securely. For technical details of how APIs work, let's dive a bit deeper. APIs have specific endpoints, which are like different sections of the menu that correspond to different dishes. Each endpoint represents a specific functionality or resource that the API provides access to. To interact with an API, you can use different types of requests. Here are some common ones. GET request. This is like asking the server to get or retrieve information from a specific endpoint. For example, using a weather API, you can send a GET request to retrieve the current temperature by specifying the appropriate endpoint. The API responds with the temperature data, which you can use in your application. Post request. This is used to post or submit data to the API. For instance, if you're building a social media app, you can send a post request to create a new post. The request includes the necessary data like the content of the post, and the API saves it on the server. A put request. This request is used to put or update existing data on the server. If you want to edit a post you previously created, you can send a put request with the updated data, and the API will make the necessary changes. And finally, a delete request. As the name suggests, this request is used to delete data from the server. For instance, if you want to remove a post, you can send a delete request to the API with a unique identifier of the post, and the API will delete it from the server. Each request can include additional parameters or data that the API requires to perform the requested action. For example, when making a GET request to a weather API, you can include the location you want the weather for as a parameter in the request. And additionally, APIs may return different types of responses based on the request. For example, when making a GET request for weather data, the API might respond with the temperature, humidity, and other relevant information in a structured format like JSON or XML. Yeah, I found this API on just a quick Google search. I just searched real-time currency converter API free, and I got exchange rates. I signed up, got my free API key. I get 250 usages per month. And there's a documentation. We have some endpoints. You can go to apilayer.com, you can make your own account, you can get the API key, or you can use my API key, but maybe if this video is getting a lot of views, the monthly usage is going to be maxed. First thing we need a Python project. So the way I like to start my Python project, I like to make a new folder called lib. I want to make a new file called main.py, and I like to make another new file called test.py. So what we're going to do in the main is we're just going to run the main thing, and in test, we're going to test it. So for now, we're going to use the test. And in the next video, when we make the GUI, we're going to run that in main. You'll see. So for now, we're going to go in test, and we need to make the API connection.py here. So how are we going to make an API request? We are going to import requests. That's a Python library to handle requests for APIs. So the second thing we need is we need the key. The key is I'm just gonna copy the API key over here, and we're just gonna paste it in here. Second thing we need is a base URL. So base URL, they don't show it here, but I saw it here. That's gonna be this. This is the base API. So base API is gonna be this. How do you make a GET request? You just type in requests.get. This is how you make a GET request. So the only thing it needs is URL. That's the only parameter it needs. And then you can set these, and if you don't set these, there will be none. So first thing we need is the URL. So the URL is gonna be base URL plus convert, and then plus, actually we don't need the plus here. And then this question mark is just going to say we're going to start the parameters, because as you can see here, this is the documentation of the API we're using now. There are 4 parameters, 3 of which are required and 1 of which is optional. First of all, we need amount. Second of all, we need from, and we need to. So we're only going to use these 3 for now. So this is going to say, oh, we're going to start the parameters. So first thing is amount. So we're just going to do amount equals, and that's going to be the string of the amount. So let's do amount equals 1 with the from currency USD to currency euro. Second thing is, so this is going to be a string because as you can see in the documentation, you see amount, the location is in the query, which means it's actually in the URL. The type is string, which means it's a string. We're gonna add another query or another parameter. This is gonna say an and. What this is gonna do is it's gonna tell the API, look, there's another parameter. So and from equals from, this is required, location is in the query, and the type is also string. So we're just gonna say from currency. And then we need to add another parameter, that's another and then 2 equals, that's going to be the URL. So let's comment this out because we aren't using that now. So let's print the URL and see if it's correct. So the URL is this / convert amount equals 1 and from equals USD and 2 equals euro. That's perfect. Okay. So now what we need for this specific API is we need the key, the authentication key, to be in the header. So how do we do that? We say headers equals, first of all, we are gonna say content type equals application / JSON. Second thing is they're not saying it. Oh, here. All requests made to the API must hold a custom HTTP header named API key. So I think they show it over here. So API key, like that. So we're gonna add a new line, API key. That's gonna be the key. So there's a line in the headers which contains API keys, and it's gonna go to key. And key is this variable over here, which is this API key. So now what you can do is you can make the GET request. So first thing we need is the URL. So let's just, that's not what I want to do. Let's throw the URL in there. And then we need another parameter in the GET function. And you can see it here, headers If you don't specify it, it's going to default to none. So you can say, if that's the case, you can do headers equals, and then you do headers, because this is the thing. This is a parameter in the request function, and this headers is this variable. So the response is going to be requests.get URL headers equals headers. Const type response. And then we're going to do .json, I think. So let's run it and let's see what happens. It says success and it has all these things. So the only thing we're interested is the result. That's this. That's the number, the conversion rate between. How do you access it? It's really simple. You just put these square brackets around and you type in result. So now it will probably only print this number. So let's run it. A lot of APIs have a timeout. It's probably just putting you in a queue or something, because we made a couple requests right now. Look, we have it. Okay. So 0.923904. Let's check if that is the case. So euro to USD, 1 euro equals, no, 1 USD equals 0.92 euro, which is the same as this. So this actually works. So now if we want to put this in an application, we want to put it in a, so we want this whole thing to be a custom module. What you're going to do here, first of all, you're going to import the requests, because that's the only library we need in this module. Second of all, we make a class that's called API connection. Make sure it's capitalized, because that's how we like to do things. The second thing we want to do in this class is we want to make a init function, and I don't want this actually. Stop. I just want to type it out myself so you can learn things. So first of all, we have an init function. In the init function, we want one argument. What is the argument? The argument is the key. So we're going to make the argument here. We're going to make authorization key. This is going to be a string. The reason I like to do this is just for readability, because now if you import this class, and it's going to say, if you want to make an object of the class, it's going to say it needs an authorization key, and the authorization key is going to be a string. It's just for readability. It actually does nothing. Next thing we want to do is we want to save the authorization key in the object itself. So self.authorization key is going to be this argument. So now you can access the authorization key in other functions. So other thing we need is self.base URL. So that's, is it this? Yeah, it's this. Okay. Second thing we need is nothing. Okay. Oh, headers actually. Headers. So self.headers is going to be this, and it's going to say the content type is JSON, and the API key is going to be the self.authorization key. So we don't need anything else in the init function now. So now we can just define the function. We're going to call the function convert. The convert function, we wanted to have a couple of different arguments. For this function, we can just copy these parameters. So we want amount. So from currency is string and to currency equals string. Define the URL. So the URL, we aren't going to say self.url, because then it's going to save it in the entire object, which we don't need. So self.base URL plus the convert and the amount. Amount is going to be amount in a string, and then GitHub Copilot already says it. It's going to be this. We can just type this over. Now what we need to do is we just need to get the response. So response is going to be requests dot get, and then the URL, and headers itself are headers. We want this to return a float. You want to return the response.json, and we want to just respond it as the result. So now what we can do is we can actually delete all this over here, and we can just from lib So that's this folder. Import API connection. API is just going to be the API connection.API connection. And then as you can see here, you need an authorization key, which is a string. So let's put the authorization key. We can actually put it like this. So the key is going to be this. So we can just put key in here. So now what we want to do is we want to make a main function. So define main. This is what I like to do in every file you want to run. You want to have a main function, and if name is main, you want to equals main, you want to run the main function. So basically what this does, it's also for readability. Basically, it makes the reader know test.py is going to be a file where you can execute from. What you want to do here is you want to do API dot convert, and then you can just do 1 USD and euro. Doesn't really matter. You can say amount equals like 10. You can do from currency and to currency, and then you can just convert, just do this, something like this. Okay, so now this will do this, and we actually just want to print it for now, since this is a test file. Let's see what happens now. Oh, okay. I'm not sure. Oh, I accidentally typed K in the PowerShell. Okay, so it actually prints 9.23904, and let's just make sure it worked. 9.24, 9.23904. So it's 9.24 basically. So this works. Yeah, I think that was all for this video. Next video, I'm gonna make the front end. I'm gonna show you how to make the GUI. Yeah, so see you in the next video.